The contractions started at exactly 3 a.m. sharp, relentless, and impossible to ignore. I called my parents immediately. They had promised they would drive me to the hospital when the time came. My husband, Daniel, was deployed overseas on his second tour in Afghanistan. We had video called earlier that evening. His face flickered through the poor connection, pixelated but warm with excitement. "Just hold on, sweetheart," he'd said with a smile. "Your parents will take care of you." His parents lived across the country. Mine lived only 20 minutes away. They had promised. By the time they arrived at my apartment, I was bent over the kitchen counter, clutching my hospital bag while another contraction tore through me. My younger brother, Kyle, sat in the back seat of their SUV looking irritated at being awake so early. "Hurry," I gasped, gripping the door as another wave of pain hit. "They're getting closer." My mom helped me into the front seat while my dad tapped impatiently on the steering wheel. "Kyle has his regional bowling tournament at noon," he said, "so we'll need to be quick about this." Quick about this. As if I were running an errand. The next 12 hours blurred together into a haze of pain, nurses, and fluorescent lights. Then suddenly silence. A tiny cry filled the room. They placed my daughter on my chest. 6 pounds, 3 ounces of perfect. I named her Lily, after Daniel's grandmother. I was exhausted, shaking, and bleeding, but I had never felt happier. "She's beautiful," the nurse said gently as she helped position Lily for her first feeding. "Do you have someone coming to pick you up tomorrow?" "My parents," I said. But even as the words left my mouth, something cold settled in my stomach. They had already left, right after Lily was born. They stayed just long enough to take a single picture, Kyle holding Lily, while I lay exhausted in the hospital bed behind him, barely visible in the frame. They said Kyle needed to prepare mentally for his tournament. The next morning was discharge day. I texted my mom, ready to come home. The reply came quickly. "Can't make it at 10. Kyle's tournament starts soon. We'll come after." So I waited. 10 a.m. passed. Noon passed. 2 p.m. came and went. Families filled the hallway with balloons, flowers, and laughter as new mothers left with their loved ones. I sat quietly in my hospital bed, holding Lily and watching the clock. At 3 p.m. another text arrived. "Tournament running long. Kyle made the semifinals. At 5 p.m. finals now. So exciting." At 6 p.m., the nurse returned with a sympathetic smile. "Honey, we need the room," she said gently. "Is there anyone else you can call?" I tried everyone. My best friend was out of town. My mother-in-law lived in Seattle. Rideshare apps wouldn't accept a newborn without a car seat. The hospital transport van cost more than I could afford. Finally, at 7 p.m., my parents arrived. But instead of apologizing, they were glowing with excitement. "Kyle won," my mom announced proudly. "First place in regionals." My dad jingled his keys impatiently. "Ready to go? We need to get Kyle's trophies home." I carefully slid out of the hospital bed, my body screaming in protest. The nurse had warned me. "You're bleeding heavily. Take it slow. No long walks." The hospital required a wheelchair ride to the entrance. But once we reached the curb, I looked around for their SUV. It wasn't there. "Where's the car?" I asked. "Oh," my mom said casually. "We had to park in the overflow lot." She beamed at Kyle. "For trophies." Can you believe it? We didn't want them sliding around in the trunk, so they're buckled in the back seat. The overflow lot sat across the street and down a hill nearly half a mile away. "I can't walk that far," I said quietly. "I just gave birth." "Don't be dramatic, Rachel," my dad snapped. "Women have been giving birth for thousands of years. You've walked before. The fresh air will do you good. Can't you bring the car here? I asked desperately. Kyle's trophies are crystal, my mom said. They're fragile. They're irreplaceable. And with that, they started walking away. We'll meet you at the car. I stood there holding my one-day-old daughter while my parents disappeared down the sidewalk. The Texas summer heat pressed down on me like a weight. I had no choice. So I started walking. Every step felt like tearing stitches. Warm blood soaked through the hospital pads and down my legs. Lily began crying. My arms trembled as I held her close. Halfway down the hill, the world tilted sideways. I collapsed onto a bus bench. Lily wailed. My vision blurred. A woman jogging past suddenly stopped. "Oh my God, are you okay?" Her eyes dropped to the blood running down my legs. She grabbed her phone. "I'm calling 911. No," I whispered. "Just need to reach the parking lot." She helped me stand. "Honey, you're hemorrhaging." But I was stubborn, still believing that if I could just make it to the car, everything would somehow be okay. When we finally reached the overflow lot, my parents sat comfortably in their air-conditioned SUV. Kyle sat proudly in the middle seat. 4 crystal trophies surrounded him, each one buckled in with a seatbelt. Finally, my dad said as I collapsed into the narrow space beside them, "Kyle's starving. We're thinking of stopping at his favorite steakhouse." I bled through their leather seats on the way home. They complained about the stain for weeks. But that walk changed everything, because someone had been watching. Dr. Emily Park, the hospital's head of obstetrics, had been leaving her shift when she saw me struggling across the street. She followed at a distance. She saw my parents waiting in their car. She saw the trophies. She saw the blood. And she took pictures. That night I was rushed back to the hospital. The hemorrhage required a blood transfusion. When Daniel heard what happened, his commanding officer granted emergency leave. He arrived 48 hours later. He found me in a hospital bed receiving blood while his mother rocked baby Lily in the corner. "They made you walk?" he asked quietly. A dangerous kind of quiet. I told him everything. The trophies, the steakhouse celebration, the Facebook posts they made while I was bleeding. Daniel didn't speak for a long time. Then he said softly, "My reenlistment bonus just cleared. We're done with them." But by then, I already had another plan forming. Because earlier that morning Dr. Park had visited with an interesting idea. "Your parents own that sports memorabilia shop downtown, right?" I nodded. "My husband is a commercial real estate attorney," she said. "That entire block is for sale." My parents' shop was their pride, their identity, their reputation in the community, a shrine to Kyle's bowling trophies, and their perfect supportive family. The next month passed in a blur of recovery and planning. Daniel's mother stayed to help with Lily. Meanwhile, my parents barely contacted me. They were too busy preparing for Kyle's national tournament. They never asked how I was. So I never told them. I didn't tell them when Daniel and I bought the building. I didn't tell them when the owner accepted our offer. And I definitely didn't tell them the new lease terms. Triple the rent. The letter arrived a week before Kyle's nationals. My mom called screaming, "How could you do this to us?" I held Lily and spoke calmly. "I'm your landlord now. It's just business. We can't afford triple. Then move. But Kyle's trophies, you should pack them carefully," I said. "Moving trucks can be rough on Crystal." Silence followed. My dad finally spoke. "You're doing this because of that walk, aren't you?" "Yes," I said quietly. "I hemorrhaged. I nearly died." "You've walked before," he replied dismissively. I smiled. "Yes," I said, "and now I'm walking away from you." They had 60 days. They couldn't afford the new rent, so they left. And in that same building, we opened something new, Lily's League, a youth sports program for every kid, not just the stars, not just the boys. On opening day, the building was packed with families. Dr. Park cut the ribbon. Daniel wore his dress uniform. Lily wore a tiny bowling shirt someone had made for her. My parents drove past slowly. I saw them through the windshield. They saw the sign above the door, founded in honor of Lily Carter because no one should ever walk alone. They didn't stop, but for the first time, I saw regret on my mother's face. They lost more than a business that day. They lost a daughter, a granddaughter, a son-in-law who would have given them everything, all for the price of a car ride. And sometimes I still think about that walk, every painful step, because every step led me here, to a life where my daughter will never be left behind, and she will never have to walk alone.